see it. The reason behind this is that sometimes if you look at an average or a mean or a maximum, you don't see a trend inside the code. And what we find is that you find trends much easier in Splunk if you put all of this into a graph. And this is having a great impact. We've got a lot of production issues with this. So let me show you here. If I click on one of these examples now, I'll bring it up. What I'm clicked on there is something called a Splunk ID. It's a way that we use to send data to each other. So if I change the graph to a linear graph, quite clearly you can see there's a trend here over the 6-minute time window of increased time inside the method.class. So if you look at the bottom here, we can see this is the class, and then this is the method that's called. And then we get the average and the quants and all the mathematics that you could want. Now that's all fine, and sometimes you get red, green, orange, but other situations you need to visibly look at the data, and you can see these trends are happening. And when we're doing a lot of our product testing, we're finding a lot of problems by just looking at the trends of the data, and this is fantastic. So that's one thing that we're doing now, and that's caused a nice feedback from the developers and the testers. The next thing we have is a Gantt chart zoom. So that, for example, let's have a look at a trade. This came from a production client. Trades in some cases were lasting 15 seconds, which is way too long. And they wanted us to say, well, what's happening, Murex, inside our data? So we can see, for example, if I hover over here, I can see a trade, 20 seconds long. Now it's 20 seconds long, and if I graph this on this 20-second window, we can see all the different methods and classes that are called inside the product. Now, the developers were still, Robbie, this is great, but we need more. So I said, well, look, if I put it on a Gantt chart line, and if I map the axis out like this, it becomes a lot more obvious of that. For example, this is the first method to be called, and it clicks over, and this is the main method that took 20 seconds. And inside that, there was the handler method, and inside that was this method here, the add operations, and inside that are thousands of these little DB queries that all of a sudden we go, why are we doing all these DB queries? Like, therefore, this is the bottleneck, but this is therefore calling this, which is taking the bulk of the time. Therefore, the investigation starts very quickly. So once you graph it, you can see the classical graph, you couldn't see that. But once you put it down to the Gantt chart graph, it becomes a lot more obvious of the chronological view of exactly what's been called to the millisecond. Then you can see it finishes off here nicely. So this is a great way we have of debugging production issues, UAT issues, test issues. And as I said, this is only open, this selection is only open for 5 minutes or less, because you really get down into the millisecond level of the code line here. And you want to know exactly to the millisecond, well, why is that happening? Okay. Then the next thing to show you very quickly, guys, that's the Gantt chart zoom. So that's going down quite well, is the Splunk ID. So I briefly showed you this before. So in this particular case, we can slice on time. And in this case, I can zoom out, say 25 minutes. So if I zoom out 25 minutes, we can see the different data points. And if I need to send these data points to someone else, I can make what I call as a Splunk ID. So I zoom on that, and I might go Splunk demo, save new test. There's Splunk demo. Now, the ID is 657. I also got a lovely hyperlink up here. I copy that. I send that to my colleague. My colleague opens that up. And straight away, they see exactly the tracing that I'm looking at. They don't have to like drill in or wait or anything like that. They see exactly what I'm looking at there as well. And then they go, oh, okay, so the investigation can continue. You don't have to drop it on an S drive or some sort of shared drive. You just literally send them a hyperlink, and then they get into exactly the situation you're looking at. And that's having great success as well. We've been able to send IDs to each other just by generating them and throwing them on, which is good. That's a Splunk ID. And then the last point to show you guys is what's called, it's easy to see the events with test runners. So this is a system that we have of running events. So let me show you that. I just click this, maximize it, and now click here. Great. Now, the idea behind this is that at night time, I go away. I might run 10 tests at night. I come in next morning, and I see that I ran test, and all I see is lines on a graph, and it's very confusing. But if I turn on my test events ID, I get a nice horizontal line saying, well, that was export test 2. This is export test 2 as well. I ran the same test twice, but I can see quite clearly the difference in the time. But again, I wanted more, because inside that I might have done 30 actions, and I want to know what exactly did I do. So again, what we did was we made another nice Gantt chart. And inside that, if I zoom on one of these guys here, for example, we can see that this is the export test 2, and then stop, clean, start. So I stop the system, I start the system. I maybe slept for 120 seconds. I start the CPU, I clean the logs. Everything then gets a nice chronological. And then, for example, in this test, I imported for like 30 minutes. I did a big long import task, and then I stopped the test. Now, what's nice about this is, for example, say I see a sleep 30, I can click on that sleep 30 there, and I know that I ran the sleep 30 log, and then I can see the output, the DOS output, or the command output that I would have got. So people don't have to anymore open up their screens or their logs. They just need to click on the Splunk ID, say export volume generation, and you get back the detailed output that the test would have run. Now this is going down really well because again, people don't have to open up log upon log upon log. They get it all here. They get a nice test event screen, and they get all the logs instantly when they see what's happening. So no more kind of fumbling through lines on a graph. You get exactly where your test is, and you can click on it. And for example, if I want to know export test 2, I click on it there, and the graph above zooms in exactly to where that is. Bang, there you go. That's your test. And that's the one of the powers of this. So very, very quickly, people can zoom up and down tests and get their data. That's what we're finding great. And the very, very last thing. Oh, that is the last thing. The conclusion behind this, the new accelerated dashboards can handle millions of lines quickly. So all that data you're sitting there, it's all in the data model. Millions upon millions of lines are sitting there, and it's thrown up 7 million lines in 7 seconds is what we can do. Any Murex developer can add TPS tracing quickly. So normally we're Java, and as a JSON trace comes out and we catch it, production, UAT, testing at Murex, makes no difference. All the same tracing, all viewed via Splunk. Any Murex employee can get their environment on the Splunk within 5 seconds. This is going down really well. Any developer can latch on and just get going straight away. And any Murex employee can generate a Splunk ID. So this is how we share data to each other. Bang, bang. Send it to your friend. Have a look at that, please. And it gives me feedback. Then now all test events are visible. So when you run a big long test, you can now see exactly I ran test. Started here, stopped here. No more kind of fumbling for your test. You know exactly when it ran and exactly what logs were produced. And then we say happy splunking. So guys,